Giant beavers, dinosaurs, mammoths, and hyenas, these are more prehistoric creatures scientists found frozen in ice. Here's something you probably wouldn't be expecting to see on this list: ancient camels. Believe it or not, camels actually first appeared in North America more than 40 million years ago. Over time, they split into two main groups: the camels we know today and the relatives, llamas and alpacas. The camels made their way across the Bering Land Bridge, while llamas and alpacas moved south. But there was another species, the Camelops hasturnus, which stuck around in North America until the Ice Age. Some of these camels roamed as far south as Honduras, while others made it all the way to Alaska and the Yukon. In 2008, gold miners in Alaska discovered some Ice Age bones, which turned out to belong to this extinct camel species. The bones were so well preserved in the cold that researchers managed to extract DNA. Imagine a 6-foot-long beaver weighing 220 pounds. Ice Age giant beavers had 6-inch long front teeth. They would have looked like fierce predators, but they didn't eat meat. This massive rodent was about the size of a black bear and had a tail that resembled a muskrat's rather than today's typical beaver tail. A 2019 study looked at fossils from the Yukon and Ohio dating back 10,000 to 50,000 years and revealed that the giant beaver's diet consisted mostly of aquatic plants. Tessa Plint, a researcher with Heriot-Watt University, explained that by studying the chemical makeup of fossilized bones and teeth, scientists can figure out what an animal ate, even tens of thousands of years later. Understanding the diet of these ancient animals helps them learn more about how climate change affected them. As the earth warmed and dried, the giant beaver couldn't compete with smaller, more adaptable beavers that survived. In 2010, a team of Russian scientists found a well-preserved mammoth in Siberia, later named Yuka. She was a young mammoth, about 6 to 8 years old, and she lived around 39,000 years ago. Yuka's body was in really good shape. Its body measured about 2.5 meters long, and it was remarkably intact, with her trunk, bones, some of her flesh, hair, and eyes still preserved, making her one of the most well-preserved mammoth specimens ever found. Pretty incredible to see. I haven't seen it in person, but based on pictures and video that I've seen of it, it's crazy how well preserved it is. They think she might have fallen into a mud pit or drowned, which helped preserve her so well. People probably butchered her for meat, too, as there were cut marks on her bones. In 2002, an amazing discovery was made in northern Siberia. The remains of a woolly mammoth were found frozen in the permafrost near the Siberian village of Yukagir. The specimen, which was an adult male, turned out to be in remarkable condition. This mammoth's head, still covered in skin, was so well preserved that it looked almost fresh. When polar explorer Bernard Bouygues heard about the find, he led a team to retrieve the mammoth's remains. The team made 3 trips to the site, carefully gathering pieces of the mammoth's body and putting them together. It gave scientists a ton of information about woolly mammoths. For example, they discovered that the mammoth had temporal glands between its eyes and ears. These glands would have helped regulate body temperature. The mammoth's feet were also a key find. The soles had deep cracks in it, which would have helped the animal grip icy surfaces while walking. The specimen also included the tusks, front legs, and even parts of the stomach and intestines. Based on the size of its bones and tusks, scientists estimated that this mammoth was over 9 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed around 4 to 5 tons. Scimitar cats, or homotheriums, were fierce prehistoric predators. Their fossils are rare. Because of this, scientists used to think that they were part of a small population. That changed in 2011 when a bone was found in permafrost at a mining site near Dawson City in Canada. This bone belonged to a scimitar cat, not a saber-tooth cat, which are often confused with scimitar cats. Scimitar cats had shorter, curved teeth that were serrated, unlike the long, flat teeth of saber-tooths. What made this find even more exciting was how well preserved the bone was in the ice. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen were able to sequence the entire genome from this bone. Their genetic makeup hints towards a scimitar-toothed cats as being highly skilled hunters, said Michael Westbury, an evolutionary genomicist at the University of Copenhagen. Going on to say they, quote, likely had very good daytime vision and displayed complex social behaviors, end quote. These cats also had adaptations for endurance. Their bones and cardiovascular systems were strong. They were built for long-distance running. And based on this, researchers believe scimitar cats hunted in packs, wearing down their prey during the day. Scientists estimated the specimen was over 47,000 4,500 years old. Scimitar cats likely went extinct around 10,000 years ago, along with many of the animals that they hunted, like mammoths and woolly rhinos. In 2018, a local man named Pavel Efimov made an incredible discovery in Siberia: the severed head of a giant wolf, perfectly preserved beneath the permafrost. But this wolf was nearly 40,000 years old. It wasn't until 2019 that researchers started studying it in detail. The big question they were trying to answer was whether the wolf's head had been chopped off by humans or separated by ice. The cut on the wolf's neck wasn't what you'd expect from ice separation. It was rougher, less smooth, meaning it might have been made by something like a tool. The severed head is quite large, measuring about 40 centimeters, much bigger than the typical 25-centimeter head of a modern Siberian wolf. It had a thick mammoth-like coat, sharp fangs, and some parts of its skull seemed more developed than today's wolves. In 2016, ornithologist Stephen Emsley made a surprising find during a research trip in Antarctica. He stumbled on ancient penguin remains at Cape Urzar near the Ross Sea, and what he discovered there was unlike anything he'd seen before. Now, at first, Emsley was researching ancient penguin remains at the site, following a lead about penguin droppings. He didn't expect to find much, since explorers like Robert Falcon Scott and Ernest Shackleton hadn't recorded any penguin sightings in the area. But when Emsley arrived, he found something unexpected: white splotchy guano stains and loose chick bones, which usually indicate that a penguin colony had recently occupied the site, but that wasn't the case. Investigating further, he found complete penguin chick carcasses and even intact mummies. The site must have been covered by snow and ice soon after the colony was last abandoned, preserving the surface remains for centuries, Emsley went on to write. The site had been used by penguins at different times in the past, with carbon dating showing it was occupied 3 times starting around 5,000 years ago. The site's location and the penguins' repeated visits were likely because of changing ice conditions, which would open and close the coast to the penguins. Emsley believes that this area could potentially see penguins returning in the future as climate change melts the sea ice earlier each summer, giving them access to the coast again. In 2018, some fossil ivory hunters in northeastern Siberia made a pretty cool discovery. While digging into the permafrost, they unearthed the carcass of a bird, but this bird was a 46,000-year-old specimen, perfectly frozen in time. The discovery was sent to paleontologist Love Dallin and a team of researchers at the Swedish Museum of Natural History. The bird is believed to be an ancestor of the horned lark, which is found in places like northern Russia and Mongolia today. It's a cool find though, the first bird of its kind ever to be discovered. The fact that the bird was almost completely intact made it one of the best preserved ancient animals ever found. The bird was found near Balaya Gora, a village in Yakutia, an area known as the Pole of Cold because of its extremely cold winters, sometimes reaching as low as -60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly -50 degrees Celsius. That is just too cold. The researchers think that the end of the last ice age led to the formation of a new subspecies of animals like this bird. The discovery adds to a list of well-preserved creatures found in the same area, like a 42,000-year-old foal and an 18,000-year-old puppy, both of which I've talked about in previous videos. In March of 2011, Sean Funk, a shovel operator at a mine in Fort McMurray, Alberta, was digging when he made an amazing discovery. A discovery that turned out to be Alberta's oldest dinosaur fossil and one of the best preserved ever found in the entire world. Honestly, this has to be the most amazing dinosaur discovery that I've ever read about. And I think Don Henderson, curator of dinosaurs at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, agrees, saying at the time, "Right away we knew it was going to be something good, but we had no idea how good it was going to be." So after getting the fossil back to the museum, Don and his team got to work, and 6 years later, the dinosaur was named Borealopelta markmichelli. The name Borealopelta means shield of the north, and the species name honors Mark Mitchell, the museum technician who spent over 7,000 grueling hours removing the dinosaur from rock. Now, I'm not done with this one. There's just too much to talk about with this discovery to cram it into one point. So, as I said, the Borealepelta was incredibly well preserved. It was covered in thick armor, especially around its neck. It also had these massive 20-inch spikes at the shoulders that were assumed to be for fighting, but Victoria Arbour, a curator of paleontology, also thought they might have been a display of health and strength, similar to the horns of a bull or tusks of an elephant. Now here's what's utterly crazy to me though. This dinosaur was so intact, they were able to see what was in its stomach. There were twigs and ferns in there, suggesting it ate during the wet season. Scientists think it could have been swept away by a flash flood, eventually sinking to the bottom of the sea. The body would have flipped over and sank, with its thick back and bloated belly causing it to be preserved in sediment, creating a natural time capsule that kept it safe for 110 million years. Here's another crazy thing about this find though. They were even able to determine, to a certain degree, what color the creature was. Most of the fossil was covered in relatively well-preserved skin, and from this, they were able to study pigment cells called melanosomes. Melanosomes are seen in nature all the time. It's what gives many modern-day animals unique markings like spots and stripes. It's rare to see melanosomes in fossils, but again, Borealepelta was especially well preserved. At least one component of Borealepelta's color was this reddish brown, said Caleb Brown from the Royal Tyrrell Museum. The color on its back may have been part of a camouflage pattern called countershading, helping it blend into its environment and avoid predators. Now also in 2011, a team of paleontologists led by William Hammer discovered a new species of ancient dinosaur in the frozen mountains of Antarctica, an area that's usually thought of as one of the coldest places on Earth, but of course millions of years ago it was much warmer. The dinosaur was small, around 4 to 5 feet long, and had bird-like hip bones. It was likely related to early plant eaters like the Ferbosaur and Heterodontosaur, which were the ancestors of larger and more famous dinos like Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus. The fossils were found on Mount Kirkpatrick, part of the Central Transatlantic Mountains. Hammer and his team uncovered a leg and foot, but they weren't sure if they had found the dinosaur's head. It would take about a year to fully understand what they'd found. Thomas Holtz, a geology professor at the University of Maryland, noted that the find could help fill gaps in both dinosaur evolution and the ancient Antarctic environment, saying that this discovery was from a time when dinosaurs were just starting to take over, comparing these early small plant eaters to rabbits, fast, common, and without armor, but important to the overall evolution of the giant plant eaters that came later. Finding fossils in Antarctica is extremely challenging because of the harsh conditions and short research window. Hammer had been trying to return to the site since 1990, but bad weather and helicopter problems cut short his 2003 trip. As Holtz put it, anytime we find fossils there, it's a brand new species. It's practically unexplored territory. So these weren't the only dino remains William Hammer discovered in the mountains of Antarctica. In 1990, he and his team discovered a 22-foot meat-eating dinosaur called Cryolophosaurus. This was a big deal because it was the first dinosaur ever found in Antarctica. Cryolophosaurus was a meat-eating dinosaur that lived around 190 million years ago during the early Jurassic period. It was about 20 to 23 feet long, 6 to 7 meters, and weighed roughly 1,000 pounds. What really sets this dinosaur apart was its unique crest. The crest, found on the top of its head, had a very unusual shape, kind of like a frozen backwards mohawk. There are like two kind of things here. It's believed that the crest could have been used for display, either to attract mates or to communicate with other members of its species. As Hammer put it, it looked like a frozen crested reptile, which is how they got the name Cryolophosaurus, meaning frozen crested lizard. And again in the early 1990s, William Hammer of Augustana College discovered more incredible fossils on Mount Kirkpatrick. These particular fossils included parts of a foot, leg, and ankle bones from a long-necked dinosaur that lived around 190 million years ago. It wasn't until much later, though, that the fossil was identified. The fossils were painstakingly removed from the ice and rock using jackhammers, rock saws, and chisels under extremely difficult conditions, said Nathan Smith, a graduate student at the Field Museum in Chicago. After a lot of hard work, Smith and paleontologist Diego Pohl realized they'd found a new species of dinosaur, which they named Glacialosaurus hameri. This dinosaur was about 20 to 25 feet long and would have weighed between 4 to 6 tons. It belonged to a group called sauropodomorphs, which includes some of the largest dinosaurs ever. Think of those massive-sized, long-necked plant eaters. In 2018, yet another incredible discovery was made in Siberia. The nearly perfectly preserved mummified remains of an Ice Age horse, believed to have died between 30,000 and 40,000 years ago. Its body was so well preserved that even tiny details like the hairs in its nostrils and around its hooves were still visible. The foal was found deep in a crater, about 328 feet or 100 meters deep, during an expedition in Yakutia. It was around 2 months old when it died. The mummified body was almost entirely intact, with no visible damage. Scientists collected samples from the foal's hair and tissue and found it belonged to an extinct species known as the Lena horse, which was genetically distinct from the wild horses that still roam the area today. This species lived in Siberia tens of thousands of years ago and disappeared long before modern horses evolved. In 2016, biologist Steve Emsley was in southern Antarctica when he came across something kind of confusing. It looked to be a recently abandoned Adelie penguin colony. There were mummified chicks, guano stains, pebbles from nests, but the thing is, Adelie penguins hadn't been spotted in the region for centuries. What Emsley soon discovered was that the penguin remains were far older than anyone could have imagined. Radiocarbon dating of the bones, eggshells, and mummified skin showed that these penguins had been dead for thousands of years. The rapidly melting ice in Antarctica revealed these ancient penguin remains. The penguins had likely settled in the area during warmer periods when the sea ice melted early, allowing the birds to reach the area and build their nests. The most recent colony, which had been buried during the Little Ice Age about 800 years ago, was finally uncovered as the region's ice began to recede. What you're looking at here is a tardigrade, aka a water bear. Now, is this a newly discovered alien species? Well, I wish, but no, these things actually exist right here at home. They're just really, really tiny, which I'm thankful for, because imagine if that alien-looking thing was the size of just even a regular house cat. That would just be horrifying. Tardigrades, nicknamed water bears, are one of the most resilient animals on the planet. They're microscopic animals that are known for their ability to survive in very extreme conditions all over the world. In places like Antarctica, they've been found frozen in ice for thousands of years. And what's amazing about these things is their ability to go into a kind of state of suspended animation. When conditions are harsh, like extreme cold or dryness, tardigrades dry out or freeze and enter a kind of hibernation. And when researchers thaw them out, they can come back to life. Water bears have even survived space travel in this dormant state. This makes them one of the toughest known organisms in the world.
Moving on to number 5 now, we have the alligator gar. That sounds like I just mispronounced the end of it there, but no, it really is the alligator gar. Despite the alligator part of its name, this is actually a fish. It lives in fresh water in North America and has done for a very long time. Fossil records show this fish is over 100 million years old. This has earned it the nickname of a living fossil. They're big things too, reaching up to 10 feet in length and weighing up to 300 pounds. They can live up to 50 years old as well. And let's get back to the alligator part of that name, shall we? As you can see from the pictures, they earned their name from having a broad snout and dual rows of sharp teeth. Unlike alligators though, they pose no threat to humans. They're slow moving animals and feed mainly on small fish, small mammals and insects. For me though, it's their scales that are most interesting. They're dark olive ganoid scales. That means they're bone-like and in the shape of a diamond. They're also big enough to be used as arrowheads and hard enough that they will cause sparks when struck with an axe. You will have to take my word on that though. Please don't go and attack these fish with an axe. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the lamprey. These are some of the creepiest looking things I have ever seen. They're the stuff of nightmares. They belong to a family of jawless fish. Instead of a jaw, they have this toothed funnel-like sucking mouth. They range in size from 5 to 40 inches in length. Imagine a 3.5 foot long one of these crawling up your leg in a river. Luckily, they don't really go for humans. They go for other fish. Their preferred method of attack is to just eat their way into the side of the fish and just keep going until they've eaten them from the inside out. Lovely stuff. They're called fish, but really they're sometimes not even considered vertebrates. You could say they don't have a backbone. No offense, lampreys. Next up at number 2 now, we have the frilled shark. We've got another shark on the list now, and just like the last one we talked about, it's been around for a very long time, about 95 million years. This thing is just strange looking. It looks out of this world, at least the modern world we live in today. The frilled shark lurks in the deep. It's been caught as deep as 5,150 feet down. That might be good news for most swimmers because these things look vicious. Frilled sharks have upwards of 300 pronged teeth which act as sharp hooks to trap struggling prey. They have an insane ability to open their mouths extremely wide and can swallow things up to 1.5 times their length. If these things sound a bit creepy, then you could try avoiding them, but it will be difficult. If I'm honest, they are everywhere. They've been found in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, off the coast of Norway, Scotland, Ireland, France, Morocco, Australia and Japan. They may not come to the surface very often, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Coming in at number 2 now, we have the giant salamander. The giant Chinese salamander has been plodding around on Earth in basically the same form for about 30 million years. It's the largest salamander and largest amphibian in the world, reaching up to 5.9 feet in length. As you might expect from the name, it's mainly found in the Rocky Mountain streams and lakes of China. Now, despite surviving for this long, it's now classed as critically endangered in the wild due to habitat loss, pollution and overconsumption. Its numbers are thought to have dropped more than 80% since the 1950s. When it comes to how creepy this creature is, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that they pose no real threat to humans. Giant Chinese salamanders are nearly blind and feed mainly on smaller salamanders, worms and crayfish. The bad news is they make pretty creepy noises. They've been known to make barking, whining, hissing and crying sounds. Some of these noises sound so much like the crying of a young human child that they are now known in the Chinese language as the infant fish. Yeah, no thanks. Sounds like a horror movie. And finally, number 1 now, we have the tuatara. These reptiles can only be found in one place in the whole world, New Zealand. They owe their name to the Maori language. Tuatara translates to peaks on the back. 200 million years ago, they used to be one of many similar species that lived all over. Now, they're the only ones left. For this reason, they have fascinated science as they provide a unique window into how reptiles would have looked hundreds of millions of years ago. They come in greenish, brown and grey colours. That makes it sound like there's some sort of toys you can buy. Anyway, they measure up to 31 inches from head to tail tip and can weigh up to 3 pounds. They have 2 rows of teeth on the upper jaw overlapping 1 row on the lower jaw, and they're the only species in the world that have teeth like that. For many years there were thought to be none of them left in the wild of New Zealand due to habitat loss. In 2008 though, a tuatara nest was uncovered with a hatchling inside. It's thought to be the first case of a successful breeding in the wild for over 200 years. That's good news. Nice. Starting off number 10 now, we have the alligator snapping turtle. Look at these things. They look like the result of asking a 10-year-old to draw what things 100 million years ago looked like. Now surprisingly, they wouldn't be far off with that. You see, these creatures are mainly found in the southeast of the United States. They belong to a family with a long fossil history going right back to the late Cretaceous era from 66 to 72 million years ago. Ever since then, these 400-pound turtles have been just doing their thing, and their thing is mainly just being the heaviest freshwater turtle in the world. They have a large heavy head and a long thick shell with 3 dorsal ridges of large scales. It's no wonder that some people have confused them for actual living dinosaurs. Because of their name, most people stay well clear of these creatures. You don't want a snapping turtle to snap your finger off. However, scientists have found that snapping turtles bite about as hard as humans do, and not nearly as hard as other turtles. If you've ever been bitten by another person, you'll know it can be painful, but hey, at least you still have your finger at the end of it, I hope. Next up at number 9 now, we have the goblin shark. These are a rare species of deep sea shark, and if I'm honest, they're pretty ugly, aren't they? I mean, look at them. Their scientific name is actually Mitsukurina otsutoni. That's a Japanese name, named after the tengu, a mythical creature often depicted with a long nose and very red face, bit like a goblin. This species is an astonishing 125 million years old. Around that time, human ancestors looked a bit like small rodents. So yeah, these things are very old. They're so old that scientists sometimes call them a living fossil. They're really interesting creatures. They have a flat snout lined with openings that serve as electrical sensors that track down their food. You see, the fish they eat give off electrical impulses whenever they move that the goblin shark picks up on. They're big but sneaky, easily able to catch their prey off its guard. Whatever they're doing, it's working, and they've been around for a very long time. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the giant stingray. This may look fake, I promise you it's not. Most of the time when you hear the word giant before an animal's name, it probably died out a long time ago. The giant scorpion, giant centipede, that sort of thing. The giant stingray didn't get the memo. It's still alive and kicking and stinging. These things can be over 6 feet across, 16 feet long, and weigh up to 1,300 pounds. If that isn't scary enough, they also have a 15-inch serrated poison spike protruding from their tail. The good news, if there is any, is that the giant stingray is generally not aggressive towards humans. If you do annoy one though, it's serious. Their sting is sheathed in toxic mucus and is capable of piercing bone. They're normally found in Indochina, Borneo, and across Southeast Asia. Their desire for seclusion is probably the main reason that modern science didn't even record them until 1852, and perhaps the reason they've stayed alive for so long. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Triops. There's no mistaking these, they definitely look prehistoric. Looking at a Triops really is like looking at a fossil come to life. They're crustaceans that have a fossil record reaching back 200 million years ago. Honestly, I'm gonna say it now, that puts anything on this list to shame in terms of age. 200 million years old. The dinosaurs only went extinct about 65 million years ago, which is practically last Thursday compared to just how long the Triops has been around. For such a long-lived species though, the individual members don't really survive that long at all, just 90 days once they reach their adult stage. An interesting thing to note about the Triops is that their eggs are probably a lot tougher than them. An adult Triops can survive temperatures of about 34 degrees Celsius for 24 hours or 40 degrees for 2 hours. Not bad. Their eggs, however, are something else. The eggs enter a state of extended diapause when dry, meaning they can tolerate temperatures of up to 98 degrees Celsius for up to 16 hours. That's just below boiling point. Unlike some of the others on our list, the Triops are not endangered and can actually be bought as pets for aquariums at home. One of the product's names for them is Aquasaurus, a fitting name for such an ancient looking creature.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with SpongeBob SquarePants. And by SpongeBob, I mean a sponge. Now what's interesting is that no one knows for sure how old the sponge is, but a rough estimate would be that they are at least 760 million years old, which then makes them the longest existing marine life species still around. Another fun fact is that a single sponge can live to be around 200 years old, meaning SpongeBob will surpass all his friends in age. That's a little sad, like he'll be alone while he watches all his friends die around him. Anyways, sponges also often use chemicals to deter predators from eating them. Scientists have discovered that some of these chemicals may have potential to treat cancer and HIV, which is incredible. In our 4th spot today, we have the hagfish. Now, I personally hate these things, okay? They creep me the hell out. They literally look like human intestines. But what's even more gross are their feeding habits. So basically, they consume other sea creatures by burrowing their way into them. They literally create a massive tunnel into the creatures and then eat them from the inside out. Okay, how is that not creepy? Not only that, but it secretes this slime to ward off predators. The slime is so sticky that it can clog the gills of the attackers. Okay, they're so creepy, and they've been around for 300 million years. In our 3rd spot today, we have the walruses. Aren't these guys so silly and goofy looking? From fossil records, it's believed that walruses date back anywhere from 600,000 years to 14 million years ago. But the ones dating back millions of years ago were not quite like the modern walruses. They don't have the elongated upper canines, but you know, evolution is a thing. However, walruses are currently at risk. Due to climate change, they are losing stable sea ice to chill on, making it harder for them to hunt for food and such, and it's really sad. In our 2nd spot, we have mudskippers. Now, these are pretty interesting creatures that have been around for over 350 million years, according to fossil records. They have the body of a tadpole, but a face of a frog or something. I don't know. So these things can reach around 2.75 to 9.7 inches in length. They are usually an olive brown color, however, some species are covered with blue markings. They also have protruding eyes, 2 pectoral fins, and 2 dorsal fins. The freakiest thing about them is that they can move their eyes around independently from each other, as in one eye can be looking up while the other is looking down. It's kinda cool, but it's also kinda weird. Like imagine if humans could do that. That would be wild. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the whale shark. Although these guys look intimidating, they aren't. In fact, they are often referred to as gentle giants. They are huge, but not really aggressive. They can grow to be up to 12 meters long. In fact, they are declared the world's largest fish. A reason why they get the reputation of being gentle giants is because they are filter feeders. They can neither bite nor chew, but they can process more than 6,000 liters of water an hour through their gills. Now, its mouth can stretch to 4 feet wide, but their teeth are so tiny that they can only eat small shrimp, fish, and plankton by using their gill rakers as a suction filter. Not only that, but less than 10% of whale sharks born survive adulthood, which is sad. But those that do can live to be 150 years of age, which is surprising since they have been around anywhere from 245 to 65 million years ago. Starting off this countdown, we have the sea jellies. Sea jellies, or jellyfish, have been around since over 500 million years ago. A reason being is that they are highly adaptable when it comes to change, whereas other animals might die off easily when put in more intense situations. Not only that, but jellyfish thrive in areas of water with depleted oxygen, otherwise known as dead zones, and they thrive in warmer temperatures. Their predators, on the other hand, like sea turtles, fish, and sharks, struggle in these environments, so they're just out there thriving and reproducing. In our 9th spot today, we have the vampire squid. Vampire squids are considered a living relic. They are said to have evolved from an ancestor of the octopus. In fact, their lineage goes all the way back 165 million years ago, and that's probably why this creature resembles both a squid and octopus, but are neither. It's confusing. This thing has 8 arms and 2 tentacles. Its arms are lined with spines that are arranged in 2 rows. What's also unique about this creature is its color, which can change depending on where they are in the ocean. They also have the largest eyes in the entire animal kingdom, which is wild because they are massive in comparison to the size of their body. But don't be fooled by its name, okay? It doesn't go around sucking blood out of other sea creatures like vampires. In fact, it gets its name from its dark color, and the skin that connects the arms kind of resemble a cape.
On to number 5, Mosasaurus. So this one is known as the lizard of the Moose River. It got the name after being the first specimen found near that river. It lived in the seas of Europe and North America, and it lived 70 to 66 million years ago. It caught fish, birds, other marine reptiles, and even sharks. It had a second set of teeth that latched onto their prey to ensure that they didn't get away, and it was just under 60 feet long on average, so huge. At number 4, we have Zygophyster. So this one was like a sperm whale or a killer sperm whale. It had a bulb like a beluga, most likely that would let it do echolocation, like one of those jiggly melon heads. So as a prehistoric predatory whale, it had teeth in the upper and lower jaws, which is unlike today's large species like the sperm whale that just have the teeth in the lower jaw. The teeth were also rooted deep in the jaw, and they had a cone shape, which is one of the hallmarks of being a predator. Therefore, Zygophyster probably went after large and powerful prey. So imagine this roaming the waters, and you think it's a whale because its body looks like a nice chill animal, but then you see the face and it's nothing but teeth. Boom, it bites into a smaller whale and then a shark, and that's just absolutely wild to me. When I think whales, I think cute, fun, but no, not this one. At number 3, we have a giant ground sloth. And I know what you're thinking, sloth? Giant one would be pretty cute. Just like the one in that video where it gave someone a flower. Oh, a gift. But not this big one. The Megatherium, or giant ground sloth, lived in South America about 10,000 years ago. It weighed up to 4 tons and was about the size of an elephant. Yeah, picture that. While it was a leaf-eating lovely herbivore, it still wasn't safe. Just take a peek at those claws. And while there are depictions of it with fur or hair, since we associate that with sloths, they were most likely hairless. Like elephants, with mass comes more heat, and these giant ground sloths were probably prone to overheating. And to do that, they had to become hairless, and they probably looked a little bit like a sloth if you mixed it with a hairless cat. Moving on to number 2, Helicoprion. This was a shark-like eugenodonted holocephalid fish. All those fancy words are to say it had this scary looking tooth whorl. They are clusters of teeth coming out of it, and it was basically a tooth factory. Scientists had to make guesses on the anatomy and behavior of the animal because they didn't recover a full fossil of the being, which makes sense because it lived in the ocean so long ago, 290 million years ago. Today, the closest living relative is the chimera, and that is a creepy looking fish too. But lastly, at number 1, we have the Titanoboa. Titanoboa. So the anaconda pales in comparison to this bad boy. The Titanoboa snake lived deep in the South American jungle 60 million years ago, and thank goodness. It would snap a victim's neck in half with just one swift move. And what was the victim this creature found? Anything it pleased. It grew up to 50 feet long with a ribcage that was on average 2 feet wide. It could eat a whole crocodile if it wanted to. The muscles around the ribcage were so strong they could crush a rhino. Also, while scientists aren't sure how it killed, they agreed on one thing. It ate its prey whole. It stayed in muddy waters most of the time, where its brown skin would camouflage it nicely, and it also probably stayed there because it weighed so much the force of gravity could cause it to suffocate under its own weight. Moving on to number 8, Pterygotus. So ever wonder what a distant ancestor of the modern day crab was like? Well, get ready, because it was a giant water scorpion over 12 feet long. They were around 420 to 400 million years ago. Their remains are mainly found in Europe, but some have also been found in North America. So this crabby guy was probably an ambush hunter waiting for its prey and then striking. It was capable of really fast bursts of speed and would use that skill in its attack. It would tear apart victims and then force the meat into its mouth with its mandibles. It is also said to have the stinger the size of a light bulb, and it's at the end of its long flat tail. I can't even deal with scorpions in real life, or crabs for that matter, and those are really small, so needless to say I'd be done for in this case. Plus it's like more than twice the size of me. I'd just be done. At number 7 we have the Leopleurodon. About 150 million years ago you could have run into this guy. It was a huge carnivorous marine reptile that lived in the seas that used to be over Europe. They were an apex predator, about 7 meters long and weighing in at over 3,000 pounds. Its head looks like a dinosaur-crocodile mix, but as its forefins show, this beast roamed underwater. Their teeth are what I find the most gnarly about them. They are sharp and jagged and look like they could absolutely shred through anything, including me. Yeah. At number 6 we have Ambulocetus. So it's a prehistoric whale that was amphibious, and yes, it had arms and legs. And if you're like, what? A whale with arms and legs? That is what I thought too, but this guy was evidence of a transitory period between land-living mammals and whales, aka proof that whales evolved from land creatures. That's why they're mammals and they breathe air. Boom. So Ambulocetus was the size of a male sea lion and most likely remained solely in the water and fed similarly to crocodiles, as in they probably killed their prey by holding it in its jaw and either drowning it or thrashing it in violent motions. Fun. If you run into a crocodile, punch it in the nose or like put your fingers in its nose so it can't breathe, and then it'll let go so it can breathe through its mouth. Pro tip.
In our 4th spot today we had the Wobbegong shark. Again, another shark that doesn't really look like a shark. And that's because this shark has camouflage techniques, and it likes to blend in with algae covered rocks or the ocean floor. And they do a good job with it too, with their flattened bodies and speckled patterns on their bodies. Now these dudes have been around since 11 million years ago. But don't worry, these sharks don't attack. They'll leave you alone if you leave them alone. The only time they have attacked is when a diver got too close or someone accidentally stepped on one. But no fatalities have ever been reported. In our 3rd spot we have the Greenland shark. This shark is said to be one of the longest lived vertebrate animals. The shark is also said to be one of the world's largest carnivores and one of the most successful predators in the Arctic waters. These massive sharks are about the same size as a great white shark and eat crustaceans along with things that have fallen off of the ice shelf above. Also, apparently these creepy worm-like parasites like to attach themselves to these sharks' eyes and literally eat their eyes out. Okay, I think that's scarier than the shark itself. But yeah, the Greenland shark is still alive today. They lived for at least 250 years. One of them lived for 400 years. Some may live to be 500. Isn't that crazy? For reference, a great white shark lives for only 70 years. So they got nothing on the Greenland sharks. Coming in at number 2 we have a pygmy right whale. Now these whales have been around for about 23 million years. In fact, they are considered one of the rarest species of whales. Around 2 million years ago they were thought to have gone extinct. That was until 2012 when they were rediscovered. Besides that mystery, there's another one, which is scientists don't know where exactly this whale evolved from. There's been much debate over this for a while. What we do know though is that these whales like cool waters, which is what puts them at risk because of climate change. Scientists are worried the rising ocean temperatures will wipe them out for good. Starting off this countdown we have Coelacanth. What's confusing about these fish isn't their name. It's the fact that everyone thought that they went extinct alongside the dinosaurs. Then millions of years later, they were rediscovered. These dudes have the most famous comeback story of all time. So in the 19th century, scientists discovered a fossil of this fish. This fossil was over 410 million years old. They thought that they went extinct over 66 million years ago. So it shocked scientists in 1938 when they were rediscovered off of the coast of South Africa. But they did have some new features thanks to evolution. Now the fish has 4 fins that move more like limbs than fins. Theory goes that maybe they were going to become a land-dwelling amphibian, and then they kinda just changed their mind. I know that's not how evolution works, but it's the easiest way to describe it. So yeah, here's a creature that used to rule the world alongside dinosaurs. In our 9th spot today we have Nautilus. This is an ancient mollusk that has been around for 500 million years. In fact, they have been around before Pangea was even fully formed. Now, originally there were 10,000 different species, but now only a few are left and are at risk of extinction. That's because of us. We are over harvesting them, and on top of that, they are slow at reproducing. They need to be left alone right now because they run the risk of extinction. It's kinda sad once you think about it, like they survived for hundreds of millions of years and only now start to die thanks to humans.
Starting us off in number 10, we're going to be looking at the Arthropleura. They are a few living animals that scare people more than bugs, insects, or spiders. The Arthropleura can probably be an exception to this rule because, well, look at this thing. It's literally a horror movie turned into real life because this creepy crawler actually lived on Earth. I know if this was me, if I saw a centipede, I would be running super fast. I would probably be running faster than Usain Bolt. I don't know if I'd be able to handle seeing an Arthropleura in real life. They're the largest known land invertebrates, and this is of all time, and it is highly unlikely that they had any predators. I mean, would you want to mess with that? No, I didn't think so. They can grow up to lengths of 8.5 feet, and even though they were herbivores, that doesn't make them any less scary. Just looking at all their legs gives me the creep, so let's move on. It's time to take flight. In at number 9, we have the Quetzalcoatlus. This prehistoric beast dominated the skies of North America during the late Cretaceous period. This creature was a type of pterosaur. Not to be confused with a dinosaur, it's a pterosaur. A lot of people believe that the pterodactyl was the most dangerous thing lurking in the skies, but they are sadly mistaken. That honor goes to the Quetzalcoatlus, whose wingspan was around 35 feet and weighed between 450 to 550 pounds, which makes them the largest creature to ever fly. Imagine if these animals were still alive today. They have the ability to pick up a fully grown male, so this would be terrifying. I would never want to leave my house ever again. When this creature is on the ground, it is equivalent to the size of a giraffe. I mean, is this real life right now? Scientists believe that they can reach altitudes of 10,000 feet and glide at speeds of 100 miles per hour. The Smilodon bites its way to number 8. The Smilodon is an extinct saber-toothed cat who lived between 2.5 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago. Just by looking at these images of this prehistoric animal, you can tell that they're pretty vicious. They're about 5 feet long and 3 feet high and weigh in at 440 pounds. But that's not the scary thing about these animals. I mean, just take a look at their teeth. That's enough to give you nightmares for a week. And for me, probably nightmares for the rest of my life. Their canine teeth would grow up to a foot long, and they had no problems taking down their prey. They would jump down on their prey from the tree branches, sink their teeth into their neck, and then leave its prey to bleed to death. Once they are dead, the Smilodon would return to eat its carcass. Another interesting thing about these creatures is that they're often referred to as a saber-toothed tiger, but they weren't even tigers. They're actually distantly related to lions and cheetahs. Next up, number 7, we have the Gorgonops, whose teeth were too big for its own mouth. I know what you're thinking. This is a pretty scary looking beast. So why wasn't he in the Jurassic Park? Well, he isn't a dinosaur. It is a therapsid who lived 260 million years ago, which is way before the dinosaurs came onto this earth. So their name literally translates to dreadful, and I mean, looking at this picture, I would say this name is pretty damn accurate. These scary looking creatures were about 10 feet long and weighed in at 1,000 pounds. There isn't a lot of information about these animals, but scientists believe that they were a prime predator of their time because they were huge and had very sharp razor-like teeth that could easily slice through their prey. and even though they weren't as big as a dinosaur, they definitely would have scared other animals that lived during their time. Terrifying us in at number 6.
Number 2, a T-Rex. Tiny arms, massive head, loud scream. Yeah, we've all seen Jurassic Park, or at least one of the 6 movies they have now. And in real life, T-Rexes were probably a lot worse, to be honest. Around 70 million years ago, this big fella would roam what is now North America. But on average, it would be 20 feet tall, 8 tons, stretched a haunting 40 feet long. And yeah, it had tiny arms, and we can roast them for that, sure. But they clearly didn't need them now, did they? No, they're Old English, buddy. They would just headbutt anything. Look at these things. Its jaws are of course the main bread and butter here. 50 to 60 razor sharp serrated teeth around 9 inches long would definitely help it digest 500 pounds of meat in one serving. Henry Fairfield Osborn, the president of the American Museum of Natural History, named the behemoth back in 1905. The name Tyrannosaurus Rex comes from the Greek and Latin words meaning tyrant lizard king. Yep, I'd say he nailed it. Pretty good. Godzilla has a nice ring, but tyrant lizard king? That's pretty groovy. That's way better. I'm gonna change my Xbox name to that. Tyrant Lizard King 69. Number 1, Carnotaurus. Okay, remember that animated Disney movie just called Dinosaur? That movie that had this guy as the main villain? Yeah, that was way too scary for kids. I'm 27 now, I'll say it with full confidence. That scene was too scary. Cried in the theaters, I remember it. I still remember it. That and Ice Age weirdly got me, I don't know. Carnotaurus, they roamed the earth 69 million years ago. They were around the same size as a T-Rex, they were around 29 feet long, but they're nicknamed meat-eating bulls, so they were scarier. They would run at around 25 miles an hour. They're one of the fastest and largest moving theropods to ever live, ever, and its arms were even smaller than a T-Rex. But again, before you laugh, before you go, haha, little arm guy, that didn't matter for the meat-eating bull, because this guy has horns, just like the devil. Yeah, you were gonna say the devil. Yeah, he's oddly similar. The red skin, it's the whole shebang. The Carnotaurus was discovered in 1984 by Jose Bonaparte in Argentina. They've only discovered one skeleton of these things, so hopefully there weren't too many of these sprinting around. Hopefully, but again, as that movie depicted, it was a horrible time to live. Thanks Disney. All their dinosaur movies, eh? They're really nice now. The dinosaur movies are nice. Back in the day, we had this guy as a villain. Yeah, we didn't have Arlo, the good dinosaur. Now I'm upset. Number 8, Mega Piranha. Don't have to say much about this one. What if I just said Mega Piranha and then it was just the next point? You're like, oh, fair. These things, for starters, were much bigger than today's piranhas, obviously, hence their name. They came in at around 1 meter long. They ruled the waters around Argentina around 6 million years ago, so skinny dipping probably wasn't a thing. I hope not. Its bite force was 50 times its own weight, and like I said earlier, Mega Piranha. Bigger. This thing was huge. It was bigger, it was badder, it was weightier, had more to it. Mega Piranha would be around 30 pounds on average. Its bite can outchomp Megalodon any day, any Tuesday. Even today, the word piranha makes people scared, it makes people anxious. As I was writing this, I was like, oh. I wasn't looking. Because our modern day black piranha, although sure it's only, 2 pounds, its razor sharp teeth can still take a chunk out of you. It's still quite dangerous. Yeah, but they didn't mention any of that in 3D Piranha Double D Part 3 or whatever we're watching now. These things are scary. Number 7, Helicoprion. Perhaps one of the weirdest sea creatures to ever exist. 250 million years ago, that is. This thing looks like a shark, but scientists now know that it was related to chimeras, a fish that separated from the shark family 400 million years ago. Yeah, they were like, I don't like this family. I got some things going on in my mouth. See you later. Good. The 25-foot long fish was first discovered by Andrei Zarpinsky in Russia back in 1889. He got the name Helicoprion because it translates to spiral saw. Yeah. In their mouth. Horrible. This guy found teeth fossilized in a spiral formation. What a find. He must have been scratching his head for months. Paleontologists all agree today that this was not part of a fin. It wasn't a wacky spinal cord. This guy wasn't, all goofed up. But rather, it was its teeth. It was teeth coiled up, attached to the lower jaw of the fish, and its grasp was the same power roughly to that of a crocodile. Yeah, that's the worst thing I could imagine. So new teeth would form, and in turn these spirals would get longer and curlier. Adult fish would have 4 full rotations in their mouths. Rotations of teeth, that's horrible. 4 rows of teeth, can you imagine? I thought wisdom teeth sucked. Ugh. Number 6, Liopleurodon. Translating to smooth-sided teeth, nice, sounds a little fun, dare I say. The Liopleurodon was anything but a smooth sailor. It was a massive marine reptile from the Mesozoic era, first discovered in the 1800s. It was excavated in France back in 1873. All they got was 3 teeth and that was enough. But when it was featured in 1999's Walking with Dinosaurs, the BBC series, it was shown as this massive 80-foot long pliosaur, but they were basing that size off of its skull, which we now know is just much larger than the rest of its body. We got too excited. The thing's literally a bobblehead of a dinosaur, and we're like, yeah, it was bigger, maybe, I don't know. Pliosaurs were the apex predators in Europe. 160 million years ago, most of it was covered in shallow water, so this guy would use its 4 flipper feet to stalk its prey. And researchers believe its snout was a key asset in hunting. He would just sniff you. They didn't have any gills, so they did need to come up for air every now and then. Again, imagine this big head just appearing out of nowhere and just sniffing you, going back in. That's Loch Ness Monster for sure.
Next up, number 6, we have the whale that ate other whales. We're talking about Leviathan melvillei. This evil-looking beast was a prehistoric whale that lived approximately 13 million years ago during the Miocene period. Based on its fossils, scientists were able to predict that this whale was approximately 50 feet long and it weighed about 50 tons or about 100,000 pounds. Oh, and did I mention that this beast also had teeth that were 14 inches long? So that means that this beast weighed 6 times more than an elephant, and its teeth were even longer than a saber-tooth tiger. But what makes this animal so interesting is, unlike other whales, the Leviathan didn't feast on plankton, it ate meat. Actually, paleontologists believe that they ate seals, dolphins, and maybe even other whales. Is this real life right now? Not only was this whale massive, he was the whale version of Hannibal Lecter. Dacosaurus swims on.
Most people think of hyenas as the scavengers of Africa, but the ancient Arctic also had its share of these creatures as well. These ancient hyenas lived over 5 million years ago, and its remains have been found around the world, from Mongolia to Kansas to Mexico. In 2019, evolutionary biologist Jack Sang analyzed a pair of fossilized hyena teeth from the Yukon. He quickly identified them as belonging to a species that once roamed the ancient Arctic. These teeth likely belonged to a hyena that lived around 850,000 to 1.4 million years ago. This hyena was equipped with teeth perfect for crushing bones, probably feeding on ancient caribou, bison, and maybe even baby mammoths. Eventually these hyenas disappeared, and researchers think they were outcompeted by other Ice Age predators like the short-faced bear or bone-crushing dog. Never heard of those before till today. What an awesome name. In 2018, miners working at Hester Creek in the Yukon discovered a mummified squirrel, perfectly preserved from around 30,000 years before. At first, this lump of fur, claws, and limbs didn't look like much, but scientists examined it more and realized that they'd found an Arctic ground squirrel that had died during hibernation. Researchers nicknamed the squirrel Hester after the area where it was discovered, and it's amazing to think that this little guy was running around the Yukon several thousand years ago, said museum representatives. When the mummified squirrel was first found, its exact identity wasn't clear until the team noticed little hands, claws, and a tail. Grant Zazula, a paleontologist from the Yukon government, was part of the team that studied the squirrel, saying, "It's not quite recognizable until you see those little hands and these claws, and you see a little tail, and then you see ears." The team figured that Hester was likely hibernating when it died. Arctic ground squirrels curl up into balls like this, one when they hibernate in underground dens, often lined with nests made of leaves. These nests are usually found empty, so finding one with an actual squirrel inside was pretty cool. To avoid damaging the specimen, they decided not to unravel the ball of fur. Instead, they had it x-rayed by a local veterinarian who'd expected the bones to be in pretty bad condition, but when the x-ray results came in, the squirrel's skeleton was actually in great condition, and it looked nearly identical to a modern Arctic ground squirrel. In 2021, scientists discovered a tiny microscopic creature that had been frozen in Siberian permafrost for over 24,000 years. The team found it buried 11.5 feet deep. The little animal was what's called a beloid rotifer, and despite being frozen solid for thousands of years, it actually came back to life, and on top of that, it was still able to reproduce. Rotifers are tough little creatures. They typically live in freshwater or moist soil and are known for surviving in extreme conditions like radiation, dehydration, low oxygen, and freezing temperatures. To confirm its age, scientists radiocarbon dated the soil surrounding the critter. Stas Malaven, a co-author of the study, couldn't believe it, saying, "We revived animals that saw woolly mammoths," which is quite impressive. I agree.